first, I did decide to have gratitude. And with that came the thought to me that I am only alive because of God's grace. The doctors gave me no more than a 50-50 chance. And they told my husband, if anyone wants to come see her, they should come now. They had that talk with him. And so I knew that I was only alive because I was meant to be.
Welcome to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Weemy, a peak performance coach and business strategist dedicated to helping you see what's possible within you, the blind spots that are holding you back, and the solutions to ensure success and fulfillment without the hustle. I use my secret sauce of metaphysics, brain science, and scripture to work with God to manifest your ideal life and business. If you're ready to create massive forward momentum in your business and bust through the blocks that drag you down, join me on the Spiral Up journey and create the clarity, confidence, and consistency to become the CEO that lives your life by design. It's time to create the sustainable impact, income, and time freedom you desire faster. Now is the time to spiral up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Spiral Up podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lachelle Weemy, and today we are going to have an amazing conversation with my new friend, Dr. Andrea Niestas, who is a professional psychologist, a coach, and a speaker. You guys, you're going to be inspired by her story of resiliency, how she's been able to really allow her thoughts to create her reality and really be the inspiration for all of us who maybe feel like we're defeated by life circumstances and how we can continue to keep going, just knowing that we have a big impact to make. So, Andrea, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited for our conversation.
I am too. Thank you so much for the invitation and allowing me to join.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I always think it's so much more fun when you guys get a chance to tell us all who you are, how you help people, like what is lighting you up these days? Like, how are you putting your talents out into the world?
So I worked for 20 years at a behavioral health hospital and really helped individuals who were at the most extreme crisis in their life.
Okay.
So I'm sort of at the opposite end now. So I'm really trying to help people with wellness and preventative care, mental health education. So I really like to help people learn new skills and take control of their own life, their own emotions, their own experiences. And like you said, kind of build their own path and help them
Yes.
understand how much power their own mindset and their own thoughts have. So
Yeah.
I really like helping people who feel like they're just sort of dredging through life day after day. It's all the same, working for the weekend, right? And help them really change their mindset and know that they can be more fulfilled and that they are capable of making that happen for themselves. So I like
Yes.
doing that individually and as well as like in work settings and workshop settings out in the community as well, doing like mental health education. So all of that is really what drives me every day.
I love it so much. I mean, people that have been listening to me for a while and or maybe you've even read my book know that fine is my least favorite four-letter F word. And so I'm like, that's what we do sometimes is like we allow ourselves to just skate through life surviving. We
Yes.
allow fine to be our norm. We allow fine to indicate the status of our marriage, our health, our jobs, our fulfillment. And then what happens is, and I think that you've experienced this, is that over time, not taking care of yourself, not taking care of your well-being, you hit a breaking point, and then all of a sudden it gets your attention, right? And
Yes.
so I
And
think that what I'm hearing from you is that you want people to get to that point before they hit rock bottom.
oh, yes. And really, like my whole point of talking about my story is for people to understand that without having to go through something like that I went through, without
Yes.
having to go through something so extreme and so painful and so like life threatening,
Yeah.
to not have to stare death in the face to be able to understand that. And so if they could just hear my story and hear my perspective and how
Yes.
I was able to get myself out of such a deep hole, then they can hopefully know that they're able to do
Yes.
it on their own and take the first step to make that happen.
Absolutely. And I love how you're just such a great living example of what it's like to take our pain or our trauma or our experiences and our lessons and turn them into our life's purpose. And oftentimes people will tell me that I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in the world. And I know that sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it's harder to see. But when you can look back and say, what have I been through? That I can take my wisdom and help other people be able to fast forward this process because I didn't have that luxury. And
Right.
that's really what you've done is you've taken your background in psychology and started to apply it to a life that you wanted to live and to serve people in a totally different way based on your experiences. That's at least what I'm hearing. Does that sound about right?
Yes. I mean, I
Yeah.
want people to be able to learn skills and learn a different perspective and think of things differently so that
Mhm.
they can do it when they're 20 and 30. Like I learned this, like I just turned 50 last year. After
Yeah.
this whole thing, I was like so excited to actually be alive and hit.
Yes.
And I would like people to be able to see that change can happen way before 50.
Yes.
When you're like not even halfway through your life, if you could change how you see the world and how you find meaning and how you find
Right.
value and how you can live that every day,
Yes.
as opposed to it's just another day.
Yes. And then I cannot wait to dive into your story and kind of how you got here. But I'm going to just acknowledge something really quickly that I think oftentimes, and I actually think I mentioned this on your panel that you invited me to be on, that
Mhm.
sometimes when you're in the biz, right, like you and I are in the business, I'm in the business of life coaching, you're in the business of psychology, that sometimes we expect ourselves to be, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, like beyond the place where we would need this help. Like I remember being in 2020 and really struggling with my mindset, working in healthcare at the time. And I remember I was the host of, at the time, my podcast was called the Unstuck Podcast, and I was stuck. You guys, I was so stuck and I was embarrassed because I felt like I had all the tools. I knew all the things. Why did I feel so stuck? And I felt like a hypocrite. Like, here am I on this podcast when inside I was feeling really, honestly, just very stuck and very lost. And I think that it's so beautiful that you get to come here and you get to shift your purpose in this world to help people. And you're so real and so vulnerable and saying, hey, I had all the tools. I have all the tools. And this is what I had to do to use those tools. And this is how I can help you guys. And that I understand where you're coming from because this is lived experience, not just what you read about in a book.
And that's, I mean, that's one of the biggest pieces of my story is I am now using the tools that I tell other people or would tell my staff, it because like that whole, the V word was not me. Like it was like, nope,
Mhm.
no emotions, no feelings. Like this is work. I don't care what you did over the weekend. Like we're here to work. Just it's all business. Like just the facts, ma'am. Like
Yeah.
just the facts. Like I don't need to hear anything more than like anything related to this task that we're working on. And
Mhm.
so to be open and vulnerable was like literally one of the scariest things to me. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to let that happen to me. Like
Yes.
that is not going to be me. Because especially being a manager, overseeing like a whole entire department
Mhm.
of people coming in psychiatric crisis. It really
Yep.
did like safety and all of that was like forefront. And it's like we didn't have time for nonsense.
Right.
And so really just kind of being a manager, like being the oldest in my family, like being
Yep.
a Mexican American woman, like going to graduate school and having degrees and trying to start like their career, like it was, I really just have to say like, I don't need any of that emotional nonsense going on. And so really that it has been one of the biggest changes
Mhm.
in me and that I've made, and it really is still like a work in progress.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I think it was Brene Brown who is attributed to helping us to remember that vulnerability is actually the greatest demonstration of courage,
And
right?
I believe
Because,
it. And
yeah,
that was the case for me. Like I
mhm,
could like deal with every situation
yeah,
and tell you what you should be doing in the situation, but like not, like not me. Like you can talk about your feelings, you can cry, like don't be embarrassed, but like don't ask me to do it. Like
yeah,
that's not
yeah,
happening
right?
here. So
Yes. Oh my
it's
gosh. Well, I love that you're here. I love that you're willing to be vulnerable and real with us and help us to see where you went, what you went through, where you were, where you are now, how you help people. Like, this is going to be powerful. So, Andrea, why don't you kind of give us the story? Give us the deeds.
so it literally started exactly 2 years ago. So in
Okay.
June, I had a change in my insurance and stopped taking a certain medication because it went from $60 to $500 after my insurance went from $0 to $500. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to take that medication anymore. Well, fast forward 6 months and it's now June, and I was like, there's something wrong. There's something not right. And so I was going to be changing my GI specialist. And so, getting in to see a new doctor, well, guess what? I have to wait 3 or 4 months down the road.
Yeah.
So I made an appointment for September. But in the meantime, I slowly started feeling sicker and sicker, and eventually got to a point where I couldn't even stand up off the couch on my own. My husband he had to lift me. if he was ever running out for an errand, he'd say, do you need anything? Because I literally wouldn't be able to move while he was gone. Give me water, walk me to the bathroom, like whatever, like I couldn't move. I was very achy and a lot of pain. I was sleeping all day. And one of the worst things eventually is I was having trouble breathing. I couldn't walk more than maybe 5 to 10 feet before I was completely out of breath. So I went to my doctor once. I went to my doctor a second time. They finally sent me to the ER. Eventually, I told my doctor I'm not feeling better. And the office just said, we can't help you. You have to wait for your GI appointment. So I went to urgent care. So all of this is going on June, July, August. Meanwhile, they'll give me an antibiotic here and there. They gave me pain medication, excuse me, but they just sent me home. So I was really just getting worse and worse. And I was probably sleeping 20 hours out of 24 hours a day. And I had gotten a second part-time job that required me to go out of town 1 day a week. By this point, I wasn't driving. Like I couldn't drive. I was so weak. My husband went with me. And so it was the second week that I went at it. And he would say, don't go, like you're too sick. I couldn't even pack. I was telling him, grab that dress, grab those shoes while I was sitting on the bed. And he had to walk me to the car. And he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I got to go. Like I said, I would do this. Like I have to go. And I know that you understand that working with the individuals that you work with, like you just have this mindset, like you committed, it's your responsibility. You have to go.
Yeah.
Well, when we were out of town, I finally collapsed and ended up in the emergency room. So luckily, I think that I was meant to have that job for the sole purpose of being out of town, where I ended up in an amazing hospital with wonderful doctors and nurses that actually helped me. My husband said, if you would have passed out here, they would have killed you because nobody was helping me here. So I ended up there, unfortunately, 4.5 hours away from home, but I was finally getting help. I ended up going into septic shock, and I was in the hospital for about a week and a half before they actually figured out why I was in shock and what happened. And I went into emergency surgery. In emergency surgery, they removed 90% of my colon. And then at that point, I was in a coma for about 2 weeks. So by this point, I wake up from the coma after looking at the nurse board with, the date and the doctor's name and your room number. I close my eyes one day. The next time I open my eyes, it's 2 weeks later. And I was so confused. I was like, what happened? So when I woke up from the coma, I had a respirator. I was on a trach, so I couldn't talk. I had feeding tubes. Because of this emergency surgery, my wound incision was probably, they said, about 6 inches deep. So I had a wound vac. I had an ostomy bag. I was in bed for so long. By that point, I was in bed at least 3.5 weeks that I couldn't walk. I couldn't even move. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't even move my toes. That was one of my first physical therapy exercises, was to finally move my toes. I couldn't communicate with the staff because even though I finally woke up, my family brought me like a board and letters, and I was so sedated and weak that every time I tried to touch a letter, my fingers, they couldn't understand what I was trying to spell. And it was so frustrating. Like I literally had no way to communicate. So besides talking, I couldn't even point to letters or write anything because my lines were like, like if a 5-year-old tried to pretend they could write cursive, you couldn't read anything that I wrote. So the first week that I woke up out of the coma was really just confusion. I really didn't fully understand what was going on because I was still pretty sedated and sort of in and out. And my husband would just say, like, rest. Like he didn't really want to tell me everything that happened. Apparently I had already almost died 3 times. I didn't know it at the time. And I really was just trying to come back to life that first week. And it was really after that second week, that I really started understanding the severity, and I really started getting depressed because I thought, am I ever going to be able to walk again? Am I ever going to be able to talk? Like I just didn't understand what I was going to be able to do. And I was petrified of the ventilator. I was so scared because I knew, I mean, working in healthcare, if I didn't get off that ventilator, I was not going to survive.
Mhm.
And so that second week, it was just like, I literally did nothing but sit there and stare at the wall because I was just so depressed and hopeless.
Mhm. Yeah, hope is amazing. When you have hope, you can find a little bit in you. But when you've lost that hope, it's very, very hard to come back from that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
how did you turn yourself around?
So after about a week, I said, you know what? Because of my history of psychology and everything that I knew that what they would try to do is they would try to titrate me off the vent.
Mhm.
And every time they did, I felt like I couldn't breathe. So then I'd have a panic attack because I thought, oh my gosh, I can't get off of it. I'm never going to get off of it. I'm not going to be able to breathe. And it was just a cycle. Like it was
Yep.
just a cycle. And so I knew that in order for me to recover physically, I knew that I had to overcome that obstacle of that hopelessness and feeling like things were never going to get better. And I had to think and believe things were going to get better so that it can motivate me enough to actually do physical therapy and
Mhm.
to make the efforts to get off the ventilator. I needed to sort of boost myself up to make that happen because I knew that if I stayed depressed, I wasn't going to be able to do the steps that I needed to do to get better because I mean, everybody knows, even if you just have a bad day, like you
Mhm.
just want to lay around, you don't want to do anything, you're not going to cook, you're just going to like, eat the
Right.
bag of chips in the pantry, like, and to be able to be stuck in that and not be able
Mhm.
to help myself physically, I was like, there's no way
Right.
I'm ever going to recover if I stay in this hole.
Absolutely. There's a couple of things that you said that really stood out to me. One of them in how I would relate this to my entrepreneurial journey and what I've seen with people over and over and over again is that it doesn't matter if it's your health and trying to
Mhm.
lose weight. It doesn't matter if it's you trying to fix your marriage. It doesn't matter if it's you trying to get off the ventilator. It doesn't matter if it's you trying to build your business. If you don't believe that it's possible for you, it is very difficult to actually take the steps necessary in order to make something change. And so
Yes.
you had to get to this point where you're like, is this possible for me? In order to take the next step. And I see this over and over again with people who it's like, if it's not possible for me to lose the weight, then why am I even going to bother? If it's not
Mhm.
possible for me to fix my marriage, why am I even going to try? And so I think that it comes to that point where you have to build that belief in yourself that it's possible and it's possible for me. The other thing
Mhm.
that you said that really stood out to me also is that once an object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays in
Mhm.
rest, right? And so it's
Mhm.
amazing how much I think that many of us in the entrepreneurial space, or maybe it's again like trying to get on a weight loss journey, or maybe it's trying to, do something personal development wise. If you stay stuck, it's really, really hard to build up that initial momentum to get started. And I'm hearing you say that it's the small thing that at least got you in motion to be able to then take the next step in motion. And so it's just that
Yes.
initial, like, is that initial almost like a choice is what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
Like
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
decided that this is what I'm going to do, and then allowed the next small step to create the momentum that was able to build. But oftentimes it's that very first step that you take when you're literally going from zero to something that is the hardest to do.
I'm sorry, I have to plug in my computer because I don't want to lose you. Okay, I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, so there's been so much research in psychology about that hopelessness and helplessness, and that those are two things that really keep people stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Even in research for suicide prevention, like
Yeah.
one of the biggest predictors of someone making a suicide attempt is that hopelessness. And
Yeah.
that hopelessness, and like you said, if you feel like there's no hope for you, or you
Mhm.
feel completely helpless to be able to get it done, like you're not even going to start. And
Right.
so what I did is, I mean, literally exactly what you said. I said, I am deciding today that I am going to do something different because I have to get myself out of this.
Mhm.
And one of the things that my husband would tell me when I was in there
Yeah.
is, you have to fight. He would say, you have to fight. And there were times when I was like sedated and like I couldn't even like opened my eyes, and he said that I would at least like tap my hand, and I would hear him when he said, like, you have to fight. You can't fight physically right now, but you have to fight with here and with here. Like, you have to do it and you have to keep going. And
Yeah.
so I made that decision, and I said, you know what? I have to stop feeling sorry for myself.
Hmm.
I have to stop thinking. I have to go from why. I never thought why me, but I would start thinking, why did I live to be in this hospital bed where I can't move? I can't talk. Like, this is my life. What is in the realms of this bed and these, machines hooked up to me? Like, this is it. So
Right.
why did I survive for this? And so I made a decision to change that to thank God I'm here in this bed, because now the doctors here are helping me, whereas the
Yeah.
doctors before weren't. They didn't do anything to help me. I was literally dying. I was dying,
Yeah.
and they weren't doing anything. So I had to change from why am I here for living for this to people are actually helping me, and maybe
Yeah.
there is a chance
Hmm.
that I could get better. And so that's where that hope came in. Like, because they're
Hmm.
trying so hard, they're
Yeah.
trying different medications. So instead of being upset that, oh, my lab work just showed that I have another infection, now they have to put me on another medication. Well, you know what? At least the doctors figured that out. And
Right.
now they can give me medication for it,
Yep.
because I wasn't getting that before. And so I had what led to me making that decision is that I realized first, I did decide to have gratitude. And with that came the thought to me that I am only alive because of God's grace. The doctors gave me no more than a 50-50 chance. And they told my husband, if anyone wants to come see her, they should come now. They had that talk with him. And so I knew that I was only alive because I was meant to be,
Hmm.
and that I really just as easily could not be here. So because I realized or thought that to be true, I said, okay, then I need to get out of myself and feel sorry for myself and realize that at the end of the road, I have a new journey starting. I don't know what I'll be doing to help other people or fulfill whatever purpose I have. I just know it's there, but
Yeah.
I'm never going to get there if I don't do something different. And so
Yeah.
that's when I started shifting my mindset.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's so, so powerful what you've said. And, it's interesting how aligned we are, Andrea, with just our philosophies and the way that we see things. Because I have always said that there's a very simple progression that I've seen over and over again with successful people is the desire, the decision, and then doing, right? So desire,
Mhm.
you desired to be better. You desired to get out of that hospital room. You desired to live. And so at some point you had to make the decision. And it's not like a wishy-washy, maybe I'm going to try, maybe
Mhm.
I hope this works. It's like,
Yeah.
come hell or high water, I'm going to figure this out.
Yep. That's
Right? It's a
exactly.
declaration that you make that says from this moment on, I'm gonna do it. And then it's the execution of that changes things, right? And so what I've noticed also is, and it's so fascinating because inside of my Spiral Up Foundations of Success that all my clients go through, the very first module is the power of choice. And we can either choose to become a victim or we can choose to become the victor. We can choose to figure it out or we can choose to essentially give up. And I know that when we're in really extenuating circumstances, it's really hard to make that decision. And
Mhm.
I've seen my own, people that I love go through mental health crises, and I've seen them lose hope. I've seen them struggle with the ownership and the decisions and the empowerment of their lives, and instead of feeling subject to what's going on and hopeless. And so sometimes people like me can say, you just have to make the choice. But when you're in the middle of it, you're like, but Lachelle, you don't know what's going on inside of my body or my brain or my situation, but Lachelle. And I'm just curious, like, where do you think you found the determination in there? Because again, like, it's easier said than done sometimes to make that decision.
And the thing with me at the time too is
Mhm.
because I couldn't communicate. Like,
Mhm.
this is all just going on in my head. Like, I
Right.
can't talk to someone and say, like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, this is what I'm thinking. Why am I here? What's going on? Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't even have conversations with people so they could support me and tell me what
Yeah.
I should be doing. There's
Right.
sitting there praying for me, and like my husband saying you have to fight, and like I have no way to have any conversations with people.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I think it's just that moment where I thought, like, I guess when I finally understood, and they did tell me that I almost died 3 times, it made me realize the
Okay.
severity. And that's when I chose to appreciate
Yeah.
the fact that I lived. Like,
Right.
I mean, really, I mean, you talked about like the first module of your program, like when there's a few different workshops that I do, and
Mhm.
really, even the workshop on how to live a more fulfilling life, that is my first step, is gratitude. You just have to have gratitude. And so
Yeah.
when
Mhm.
I created that workshop, like that's what I had in mind, was
Mm.
remembering that moment and
Mhm.
realizing that I had to be grateful. Whether it's gratitude, or people call it that you find the silver lining, or
Yeah.
you reframe, like whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's really just knowing that, I don't want to say you realize it could be worse, because I
Mhm.
mean
Yeah.
that's always the case, but
Right.
there's just always some sort of positive that you can look for. And
Yes.
gratitude, it's not having those rosy colored glasses and
Mhm.
everything's
Mhm.
good, and
Yeah.
the glass is full. It's
Mhm.
really just searching for that goodness and appreciate.
Yes. It's
It doesn't mean that you don't see the negative. It just
yeah.
means that you are looking for what is good, and
Yes,
you're
it's almost like
appreciating that.
searching for clues for hope is what I'm
Yes,
hearing from you. Because I think too, you and I both understand the brain, and we understand that our brains, our reticular activating system is wired to essentially continue to see things in the outside world that confirm an internal belief, right?
yes,
And so if you look around, your brain is going to naturally, if you believe that this is going to be really hard and that it's hopeless, your brain is going to continue to validate that in
yes.
everything that you see and experience. And you have to, again, make a choice to look for those clues, look for the silver lining. And sometimes people are just predispositioned to naturally look for those. I'm one of those, weird, half full, always kind of gals anyway. And I know that there's people in my life that I love dearly that are just like not that way by nature.
Hmm.
And so it might take a little extra decision, a little extra purposefulness in the thoughts. But what if you were able to challenge yourself to look for the clues to hope, look for the silver lining, like you said, and allow then to reprogram your brain to naturally look for those without having to force it. But I think that the hard part is that, again, going back to the momentum piece, the first time you're like, okay, I need to find something to be grateful for. Because I had conversations with people that have a hard time listing 5 things to be grateful for,
Hmm.
and I can spend 5 hours because it's just how I'm wired. And so that initial, like, what was that initial turning point for you where you're just like, I got,
It was fear. It was the fear of the ventilator, honestly. It
Mhm.
was like the
Yeah,
monster, like the big
yeah,
red monster, like the machine was red. And it was like,
hmm
of, it was really that fear of death, because the other thing that was happening that I didn't even know still at this time is
hmm
that I was having hallucinations. So it was either strange dreams or hallucinating, like, who knows? Like,
hmm
I was like so sedated, and
yeah,
I
and
had such a
yeah,
severe infection, like it could have been anything. But I was having hallucinations that the staff was trying to kill me. And so I couldn't even, like I said, communicate that to anyone, because
yeah,
I couldn't talk. And
yeah,
it was really that fear of, like, the machine is breathing for me. Technically, if they turn that machine off, I am dead. I am dead. And
hmm
if I can't find a way to get off of it, I am
hmm
not going to live. And so
yeah,
really was that fear of fighting for my life,
hmm
is what it was. Because I
yeah,
felt like I had to do this one thing.
yeah,
The big thing was the big X, and it was that machine. I
yeah,
had to get off of that before I could really recover physical therapy or any kind of other.
right.
And it really was changing my mindset, was really, I had to overcome this. And once I can
Yes.
overcome this, then I can do everything else that I need to do.
Mm. I love it so much because as human beings, I know that we're motivated more often by pain than pleasure.
Yes.
And so it's so fascinating. I mean, I literally, if you were trying to have a new habit, let's just say walking every day, and I was like, hey, you're going to have all of these benefits. You're going to feel better.
Mhm.
You're going to drop a dress size, all these things. And you'd be like, yeah, maybe. And then I'd say, every day you don't go for a walk, you owe me $20. And now there's a loss, there's a pain, and like, guess what? You're going to start walking every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so interesting when we can take that, the pain part of it. You're like, if I don't do this, the pain is I'm going to be stuck on the ventilator. The pain is that I will die if they take me off of it. And so I think that sometimes it's okay for us to acknowledge what is the pain if I don't do anything? What will happen to me? And I think, and I want to try to bring this to a broader context for people who are trying to, again, like make a big life change, whether it be a marriage, a health journey, an entrepreneurial journey. What is the cost to me if I do nothing over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And sometimes that cost is going to be enough to motivate you to start looking for the clues to hope, to start getting the small steps, the momentum, and making the choices, all the things that we've talked about. And I love that you gave us that insight today. Like, what is this costing me? What is this going to do if I don't do anything? And allow that to motivate us just enough to start the next one little step to make the decision and then to be able to go from there. That sounds like what you've been describing. Does that feel accurate to you too?
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole like learning principles of psychology,
Yeah.
and it includes a little bit of social psychology.
Yeah.
But like literally for me, it was like my life. If I don't do
Hmm.
this, I am losing my life,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that when I say I made a decision, like it was, I'm like exactly like you
Yeah.
said, it was like come hell or high water,
Right.
like one way
Yes.
or another, like it is going to happen. And
Yes.
not that I didn't have any bad days after that, or not that it wasn't hard, not that I had to remind myself, like seeing somebody else in physical therapy have a worse time than me, saying, oh, I was feeling sorry for myself this morning, but you
Yeah.
know what? That's over. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to remind myself
Hmm.
again of what I was fighting for
Yeah.
and why I was doing it. And so it really was and still is like an ongoing process,
Right.
just because
Mhm.
and like you said, after the decision is the action. And the
Yes.
action is going to be two steps forward, one step back,
Hmm.
and that's the way it was, like in recovery. Like I could stand, like when I was in physical therapy, I could actually stand. And the next day when I tried, I couldn't do it. Like my legs were like mush.
Hmm.
And I was just like so frustrated. Like I just did this yesterday and now
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't do it anymore. Like it was really
Yes.
hard to keep
Yes.
that mindset and to keep
Mhm.
that motivation to keep going and not let myself fall back into that hole.
Yeah.
It was every day.
And I think that's so powerful, when you talk about this, because I feel like when we think about in business or anything in life, right? Like we cannot expect this trajectory to be just this perfect line. This is life up and down, right? And it's how do I stay motivated? How do I stay hopeful? How do I stay in action? How do I stay in this place even when life has taken me upside down and inside out, right? And that's one of the
Mhm.
things that I teach inside of my program as well is the conquering of life and how do you stay in high vibes? How do you stay in forward motion? And I'm curious to bring all of this conversation back to how you help people because you said at the beginning that you don't want people to have this giant life-changing moment to live a better life, to get out of the traps of fine. What is it that you do to clients to help them to live their best life?
So I really talk about how I focus on that every day I have to remind myself. So every day I'm
Mm,
doing that, like you said, every day I'm doing the action. But
yep.
it really starts with every day remembering that I only have this one life
Yep.
here on earth. And knowing that today is never happening again. This moment is never coming back, and that I need to make the most of this day and any opportunities that come up because we don't know. I mean,
Right.
we always say, like, oh, you don't know when your time comes, but like, unless you're like really looking at death in the face, it's
Mhm,
hard to really understand that.
mhm.
And so, if I could try to convey that to people and have them be able to understand that how powerful that could be for them to know that and to live that without without having to go through something horrible, but really just knowing that like this day is never happening again and every day I try to make the most of it and do something good for the world. I try to give something good like every day, because otherwise it's so easy to go back to take everything for granted.
Hmm.
This is, like I mentioned, I think this is like the 2-year mark of this whole thing starting for
Yeah.
me. And still every day I'm like, this, I have to do something. My purpose today is to do something to help someone else, whether it is just telling someone, like, I really love that color on you. You look great today. Like anything to make someone smile, or doing, like, I carry around these little inspirational cards and
Yeah.
I will give them to someone that was really great to chat with in the grocery line, the store, the line at the grocery store,
Mhm.
or someone who really seems like they need a little pick me up. Like
Yeah.
just those little things. And that I have a workshop that I talk about kindness and why kindness matters. And
Yeah.
another workshop, like I said, in living that fulfilling life, like what are the little things that you can do to
Yes.
help other people? And when I do my talk about this journey, my journey, I talk about grace, gratitude, and giving, because that's what helped me
Yeah.
through this whole process. The gratitude that
Yeah.
helped get me out of that hole,
Yeah.
the grace that I had to give myself, because it's always 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
grace that now I am responsible to give other people,
Mhm.
for the grace that I was given. Now in
Right.
turn, I give people patience and forgiveness, and
Hmm. Yeah.
that's all under grace.
Right.
And then the giving to other people, giving them something to smile about, giving them
Hmm.
something to feel hopeful about,
Yeah.
just giving them something to
Yes.
make their life a little bit better. Like
Well, I,
all of
I
those I do every day.
I think that, one of the things that I found when I was doing the Unstuck podcast for years and interviewing people who had been through hard things is that there were two things that kept standing out to me. Most of them had a belief in something higher than themselves. And the second one is when they made themselves of service to others, it helped to take their attention off of their
Mhm,
woes and why me and all the things. And it
mhm,
started putting purpose back into their life. And so
mhm,
something as simple as giving out, an affirmation card to somebody or telling somebody they look lovely that day does create this beautiful ripple effect of giving and receiving kindness. And there's a couple of other things that I felt really stood out in what you just said. I oftentimes will have people that are stuck in fear and overthinking. I'll ask them, if you were told today that you had 3 years left,
mhm,
what would you do? What would you no longer tolerate? What would you start? What would you stop? Right. And it's amazing because we say, okay, well, once I have this time limit, all of a sudden I'm going to stop procrastinating. I'm going to start being brave. I'm going to start doing the things. Friends, we don't have a tomorrow guaranteed. And so, what if you could start to look at your life and say, if you were told that you had 1 year, 3 years left, what would you start doing today to take advantage of every minute? And then the second thing that you said is that every day is a gift. So, even if we're not thinking about the big things, the big
mhm,
starting the business or quitting the job or asking her to marry you or whatever the case may be, and you're looking at the simplicity of today, what can I do today to make the world a better place because I'm here? And that's really what you embody, Andrea. You teach people how to do that. You teach people how to live beyond fine. You teach people resiliency and gratitude and growth. And I am so grateful that I had a chance to share your story today to my audience.
Thank you so much.
Is
And
there
I
any?
just, yeah, I just want to say that my tagline that I chose for my business is kindness, courage, and hope,
Yes.
because I feel like that's what we all need. Kindness to other people and to ourselves, because that kindness, like you said, that's one of the things I talk about in my kindness workshop, is when you stop focusing so much on yourself and you focus on other people, then you see the
Mhm.
opportunities to do good. When you're not just on your phone and you're not just walking through the
Right.
store, in your own head, you notice other people, you notice what they're doing, you notice conversations, you start something with them and you learn about them. And
Yes.
when you can give other people kindness and you get so much in return, and having that courage to make that decision or start that action, it's like you're not going to move, you're not going to learn, you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to do anything, all
Mhm.
those things that you want to do, if you don't have that
Yes.
courage. And then you have to
Yes.
have that hope. You have to have that hope that things are going to get better, that you can do it. Otherwise, you won't even be able to start the process.
100%. Oh my gosh, this is gold. Thank you so much for showing up with such a big heart, for so much inspiration, for vulnerability, and honestly, just hope for people who are out there who are stuck in the messy middle of life and proving to them that it can get better and that you can take your whatever it is that you're in and create something beautiful out of it. So thank you so much for that. You guys will have access to all of Andrea's assets inside of the show notes. So knowing how to follow her, how to connect with her, all the things if you're interested in her speaking or doing anything like that, you guys know how to reach out to her inside of the show notes. And I want to encourage you, if you're feeling like you're stuck and that you would love to know where you are as far as the gap between the life that you want and where you are currently, especially under pressure, I want to encourage you guys to show up on my website and book a identity gap assessment where I get a chance to look at you, look at your life, look at where you want to go and look at where you currently are and help you decide what you need to do to fill that gap. And so I want to encourage you that this is a hope conversation, that fine is no longer fine for you and that you can take Andrea's message and use it to help you get to this next point because you've decided, come hell or high water, it's going to be better by this time next year. Would you agree, Andrea?
Oh, yes, 1,000%.
All right, you guys, we'll see you all next week. And Andrea, thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you guys all later. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
So much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Each honest review helps me spiral up so that I can serve you even better. Whether you're feeling a lack of impact, income, or time freedom, or perhaps you're just ready for massive momentum in your business, let's chat. Apply for a call so that you can gain clarity, identify what's holding you back, and make a plan to spiral up. Head on over to iam-lifebydesign.com or access the link in the show notes. For immediate support, log into our community, the Better Club. We focus on inspiration, tactical guidance, and support. This is a community that wants to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business, and we're going to help you do the same. Let's spiral up, friends.